Hello there. We are underway in celebrating our first year anniversary. And if you don't already know about it, I'm hosting a raffle and giving away more than $2,000 worth in cash and prizes. So if you or a friend have access to an Apple product, you can enter to win. For the complete details, go to sayyesToYourSoulPodcast.com. All right, here we go with another soulful episode.
I can't remember what exactly happened, but we were, say out for drinks and something happened and a friend of mine reacted in a certain way. And I looked at him and I was like, I used to react that way, but I didn't this time. I kind of hadn't really noticed my own transformation.
Hello, I'm Tessa Lynn Alburn. Welcome to the Say Yes to Your Soul podcast, where we empower women to connect with their souls and shine in their business. If you are ready to embrace your brilliance, create meaningful connections, and be compensated for your specific gifts, you're in the right place. Join us as we explore inspiring stories, practical insights, unique points of view, and soulful strategies, all to help you thrive. So let's dive on into this transformative journey together. Tune in and say yes to your soul. Hello there. Our guest today is a lovely woman who is a transformational speaker. She's a published author and a certified life and health coach. Her name is Elisa Boogaerts. Elisa helps professionals confidently put themselves first so that they can make their next big, bold move in their life. Elisa understands how daunting and scary making a big life change can be because she made several of them herself, and we're going to be talking about that today. She helps her clients to plan and execute their goals while coaching them through the ups, downs, setbacks, and all of that stuff so that they actually achieve that big, bold move. So I'd love to welcome you here, Elisa. Say hello.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk about saying yes to your soul and fulfilling your dreams. I'm just so passionate about. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. I'm really glad we met. I've seen you around for the last year or so. We travel in some of the same circles. And then about a month ago, we were at one of the same events and things lined up for us to have a conversation. And, you have a wonderful story. And I love that you stand for big, bold moves. I just want to say really briefly before I let you speak, that you have a beautiful softness about you. And so when I saw that you were about big, bold moves, I was like, well, that's really interesting. She's not overly masculinized. She's got this sweetness and this approachability. And I really like that about you, that you stand for big, bold moves, but your way in the world is kindness. And so I've already learned all that about you, but I would love for that. Yes, of course. So we know that there were times when you were making big, bold moves that you had to go through. And I know that life is not perfect. And so sometimes when you do those things, things don't go the way that we plan them to. Was there ever one of those times or one of your bold moves didn't go as well as you planned?
Yeah, I think that in every big, bold move that I've made in my life, there's definitely challenges and setbacks that happen. But the one that had the biggest impact was I love to travel. So that was one of my big dreams. I wanted to travel the world. And I ended up living abroad for 11 years. And when I made a move, I was living in Europe. I was living in Amsterdam, and I decided kind of had enough of Amsterdam. I'd been there for 5 years. I'm I want to move to London, England. And in between decided to do 7 months of backpacking. And I had a boyfriend at the time in Amsterdam. We dated for about, I guess at that point, maybe it was a year and a half we were together and we were living together. We weren't doing the traveling together. And it was an like a mentally abusive relationship. He was quite controlling. And we probably should have broken up before we even left. And even in that 7 months of backpacking, there were so many times I thought, well, like, could I leave him and just go traveling on my own? And so we moved to London after the trip. And, we were just there with like a suitcase, basically, and like a backpack. And we were staying at his brother's place. And we were just kind of getting settled. And then we broke up. And but we were at his brother's place. So I had to leave. So I find myself in London, this giant city. I've only been there like a few weeks, and I've got my life in my hands, right? I've got like my suitcases and like my backpack, and I don't really know anybody. I know like maybe two friends of friends, or like an old friend from high school that I hadn't spoken to in 20 years. So I didn't have anybody. I was basically
Oh
there on
my
my own.
goodness. I mean, that can be really scary. I know what that's like to be in a foreign country and not have connections and to be wondering, like, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Now what? Like, everything changes, especially when you're in a relationship.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, and it was like there's no sort of support network or nobody there that you can go to. Usually if you have a breakup or something, is the girlfriend's house you can go to and eat a tub of ice cream and cry together.
Exactly.
Didn't really have that. And because I was there, I didn't have a job yet. So I was jobless. Yeah, I didn't have any local friends. We had just been backpacking for 7 months. So I didn't have much money left. And I was completely heartbroken. And even though like I knew that the relationship was over, it was such a controlling relationship that I had no sense of self anymore. I didn't like I had kind of like in talking about like saying yes to your soul, I felt like I'd really sort of disconnected from that. And like I was just like, oh, I haven't been able to think for myself in
Like, how
years.
did you come to that awareness? Like, oh, was there a moment where that sort of just jumped in there, or it was a kind of a slow creep in, like you realized it, that you just didn't have that identity, that strong inner core?
I think the moment that it hit me was like a few months later, actually, because I had eventually like was able to find a home, and that's kind of like I started to feel the weight of depression around then, and it really was
Hmm.
heavy on me, and I was my confidence was super low, and so yeah, I was able to find an apartment, so that gave me like a little bit of hope that things might work out. And it was a woman that I had met in Nepal. I like had volunteered at an orphanage there, and she was traveling for longer than I was. So it's a couple months later, she moved back to England because she was English. And she messaged me and was like, let's meet for a cup of tea. And I remember just sitting on the couch and being like, it was in November. So it was like cold, rainy London, dark, it's like the evening. And I was like, I remember just looking at that message being like, ugh, it means I have to like get up and shower and leave the house. It's just like, I don't want to do any of that. And I just stared at this message and I kind of like sort of put it down and I didn't really know what to do. And then she messaged me again because she knew I wasn't doing anything. I didn't have a job yet. And so she convinced me to come meet her. And I was like, okay, like fine, I'll go. And I dragged myself off the couch and I showered and I went and met her. And
You had to have been in a really low place to like avoid a woman's invitation to tea.
yes, absolutely. It was in such a low place. Like it was literally just lying there. He's like that, just that weight of that, like, ugh, I don't
Um,
even know if I want to get up. And I
oh,
met her in
yeah.
Camden and we went to this quaint little tea shop. And she gave me this really warm hug. And like the tea shop was so cute. It had like these little chairs and like little porcelain teacups. And I got a peppermint tea and it smelled amazing and it was warm. And we sat down and started talking. And she asked me, like, what did I want out of my life in London? And I was like, oh my God, I have no idea. Like, what did I want? Like, I haven't been asked that question in a long time. And I think that's when it hit me. That's when I realized I was like, wow, I don't even know what I want. I was so stumped. I
Oh,
wasn't even sure who I was anymore. And I think that's what that realization was. I was like, wow, like I'm kind of deep in it here. I can't even answer that question because it was my decision to move there. I wanted to move to London. It was going to be so much fun, but I completely lost sight of all of that.
you didn't even know why you had ever been inspired to do that.
Right. Yeah. I like completely sort of
That's
forgot.
amazing.
It seemed so long
Yeah.
ago because we had left in, I think it was like January or February. So it was almost like a year later. And yeah. And so that question is what really lifted me out of the low state I was in. So it was like, oh, right. Like I have my own brain and, and I've done, I've made big bold moves before that, like several of them. And so it was like, right. Like I have ambition. I have wants and desires. I have, like, and that's when it kind of started to come back and really, yeah, lifted me out of that low state and made me realize and gave me that freedom to think for myself. And I started to like evaluate my life a bit more and kind of asking like, right, like, what do I want? Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up in this world? And it was actually this like, it was quite beautiful looking at it now because I was there on my own. I didn't really have those external influences or like pressures from anyone of what I should be doing or how I should be doing it. And I got to like reinvent myself to be
Mm.
this person that I wanted to be, because I know that there was some, I like to call them personas. Like, you kind of grew up with all the people who call them like masks or whatever as you
Mhm.
like go through life. And I was like, wow, like I knew that there was some of those I wanted to let go of. And I was like, wow, I can actually let go of them now because I can be whoever I want to be here, which was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. I want to say it was about like a 2-year journey to kind of figure that out and rebuild my life from the ground up.
So you were rebuilding your life, like literally, how am I going to earn money? Where am I going to live? All those basics. And you were reinventing your own identity at the same time.
Yes. Yeah.
And one of the things I know that you utilize are what we call high quality questions, right? Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up?
Yes. And to give yourself the patience and the time to figure it out.
Mm,
And then also give yourself the patience and the time to do that rewiring of your brain, to actually like to act differently, to act the way that you want to be, because we have so many sort of like, programmed brain synapses that just sort of fire off. And it's like, oh, I can like work on changing that.
So would you say that this event led to like, I mean, I know you do a lot of stuff now, right? You've been in the self development arena for a while now. At that time, were you thinking those things or were you just like trying to find a way to get yourself going again? What was really motivating you at that point?
I was thinking those things a little bit because I was introduced to that kind of, yeah, like meditation, mindfulness when I was in Nepal and when I was in India.
Wow.
When I was in Nepal, like I volunteered in an orphanage there, but we also went on this like 18-day trek in the Himalayan mountains. It's called the Annapurna Circuit. And I was doing the trek with my boyfriend, right? We should have probably been broken up by then, his brother and his friend. And there were 3 English alpha males. And like that 18-day trek was so difficult. And like, it was physically difficult, but also mentally because I was with these alpha males, and it was just like,
Like so not very much connection, a lot of competition, a lot of just keep on going type of stuff or
yeah. And like also, like because at one point I had like 11 blisters and I was sort of shamed for complaining about it, for saying that I had
oh,
sore feet. And there was in Nepal, they have really close to the like temples and things, they have these prayer wheels that has
yes.
this chant on it, Om Mani Padme Hum. And as we were in these like little remote villages, almost all of them had these prayer wheels as you entered the village and as you exited the village. And I remember just like spinning them as I would walk in and I would say the chant to myself. And it was really like grounding for me and really like centering, like, just be in yourself, Elisa, like,
Oh,
enjoy the beauty around you and just kind of don't let these 3 individuals, get you down and enjoy what you're doing. And they, yeah, I actually ended up getting it tattooed on my body. It meant so much to me in
I
that chant.
love that.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So as you're talking about that, I am having memories of a bunch of images from having worked as a photo editor for some short time in my life and seeing those prayer wheels. And I have these strong images, but I love how you said, like, you actually chanted it. And to me, what that probably was, how that was helping was it was like the expression of your own truth, the expression of your own voice coming forward in the midst of all the shaming, energy that you were being subjected to. And some part of you knew the truth of what your authentic self was about. And there you were, own mind, padme hum, own mind, padme hum. I think it's beautiful. And you felt grounded. And so, I just want to know like all the details about that.
But that chant is kind of what I had with me when I was in London in that difficult time, to kind of like bring it back to that, what was sort of motivating me. And that's kind of how I got more into the mindfulness. And then I was like, oh yeah, like that was lovely and calming and soothing. Like, oh, let's do meditation now. And like, I want to be that calm, soothing person. And like how you described my demeanor at the beginning of our chat here, before I did have a much stronger masculine energy, and I was sort of like the tough chick and like, I could do everything, like no one can compete with me. And I was like, oh, I really would love to let go of that woman and embrace this kinder, gentler, calmer person that I know I have inside me, which is probably very much the little girl I was that I kind of lost as I grew up. And I really reconnect to that. And I really feel like that chant and mindfulness and like affirmations and meditation, journaling really helped to bring that part out of me back out, bring her to the forefront. Mm-hmm.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about your own personal journaling style around that? Like how you get to that place, how you got to that place where that part of you started coming out?
Yeah, I got when I really started to kind of rebuild that life of me, I did like, so I knew about meditation. So I started doing that daily. And there was actually at my work, there was a coach actually, which is kind of how I got introduced to coaching, who talked about like affirmations. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then he had like journal prompts. And I was like, oh, like this is kind of fun, like let's just actually like write about it. And that's kind of how I got sort of introduced to it and into personal development. And through that, I was able to learn to love myself again, like value myself, to speak my truth. And I really feel that it was through that. But yeah, I'm so grateful to, his name is Nicholas Bate, grateful to him for introducing that to me, because it really set this like path for my life that I never expected it to happen. And it has led me to here today, which is pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. So let's kind of fast forward a little bit. You went through those 2 years, you started shifting and changing, and how did you emerge? What happened?
I feel like it was sort of like this evolution. And then at those 2 years, and I found myself like living the life. Like I was happy at my work. I like was pursuing this project management career. I had some amazing friends that I had met. And that was also really cool, was that being there on my own and trying to make friends, that I could like pick and choose who I wanted to do. I could meet people and be like, oh, you know what? You're not my person, or I don't resonate with you. And I could just let them go. And the people that I did resonate, I could really like give them all my time and my energy. So I had these like amazing friends. And then I really started to like love this city and enjoy all its amazingness, because London's just like giant and has so much going on all the time. And I remember, I can't remember what exactly happened, but we were, say out for drinks, and something happened and a friend of mine reacted in a certain way. And I looked at him and I was like, oh, I used to react that way, but I didn't this time. Like I kind of hadn't really like noticed my own transformation. Like I knew I was much happier in myself, but actually seeing that reaction, I was like, I used to react that way. And I was like, but that didn't even occur in my brain this time. I was like, wow, look what I did.
Isn't that exciting?
Mhm. It was eye-opening.
Yes,
Like a headache, for example, you kind of don't really realize when it's gone. All of a sudden, it's just gone, and you feel better. It was sort of like that. Like, oh, I didn't even notice that I am a changed person.
exactly. And you got to witness it in somebody else and, see part of yourself in that, your younger self, and realize, oh, you had become more of the person you wanted to be.
Yeah, and even just thinking about values, for example, I don't think that was ever anything I'd really thought of before. Like, what are my values? Like, can I start living towards them? Could I be that person? Like, who is my authentic self? Like, and even sometimes these personas, like even just a few years ago, I noticed one and I was like, oh, I didn't realize I still have that one. It's like this onion that keeps on kind of being unpeeled, or as we change,
Yes.
grow, our the authenticity emerges.
Well, what would you say, like, because I have a sense that, some of the listeners here are wondering, well, that's great. Like, do I have to go, travel around the world, have a big breakthrough or break up with the love of my life? Or no, right? Like the answer is no to that. That's easy. But there's got to be a way for the so-called everyday woman to be able to access those levels of depth. And I know you have some insight into that. Would you be able to share a little bit around that?
Yeah, that's why I really love the confidence work that I do, a lot of self-confidence work. And I created something called like the confidence method. And it kind of goes through all those things about like identifying your values and using affirmations to speak to yourself better, and being kind to yourself, and learning that, it's okay to say no to things, and actually like you're really important, and really kind of finding that true you inside, and giving yourself that permission to do that. Because like even the word confidence, um and like even like you were saying earlier, big bold moves, they can kind of have this sort of like reputation of, you're like, yeah, kind of like masculine, or like sort of like big and boisterous. Even confidence can be like have this word, it can relate to like ego and
Mm-hmm.
bravado, right? Like, but
Yes.
really I see confidence as like even the word confide is within it, and it's really like to trust, and to trust in yourself, I think,
Mm.
is what self-confidence really is. So like if you trust in yourself and your abilities and who you are, you can do whatever it is that you want to do.
Oh, yes. I love that connection there.
Yeah.
Confiding in yourself, to trusting yourself. It is trusting in yourself.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's really what can move you forward and drive you and help you make the change that you want to make, or make like a big bold move if that's, within something that you want to do, or just follow your dreams, and knowing that
Mm-hmm.
you can do that. But it's really an internal thing of you and yourself, and loving yourself, and just knowing that like, oh, I got me, and I can do this if I want to do it.
So, in your practice of coming into greater trust and love and appreciation for yourself, was there also kind of a greater connection to what we often call spirit or the divine or the universe?
Yes, I think so. I do. Yeah, I like to think of sort of like the universe, and I like to think of energetics, right? And like the energy that you put out, and the kind of where you're at within your own mind, what is what you also like attract in your life. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's definitely that. Like there's a lot of that sort of like, what is my sort of vibration? Like where's my frequency at, and what am I like putting out, and therefore also receiving in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I do think that, put it out into the universe. But I also really believe in like the power of the human brain. I think that our human brain is just so incredible, and I think that through that is kind of how we somehow have connections with each other, and make things happen. Like when you're thinking about someone and then they text you and you're like, how did that happen?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So what's something that's Like, do you have anything in your life where there was like an outstanding example of that, where you were just like thinking of somebody and then, that thing happened, whether they showed up at your door or whatever? Do you recall anything like that?
I do actually have like one of my closest friends who's in Amsterdam. Like sometimes I'll be thinking about message her for like a week or two or something, and I finally do, and she's like, "Oh, I've been thinking about you for 2 weeks." Like almost every time that we one of us messages the other person, we have that same sort of beginning of the conversation, like thinking about each other. Yeah, so we definitely have some type of connection, her and I.
Yes, it's very specific with her.
Hmm. Yeah, and I was just trying to think, because after 5 years of living in London, I decided to move home, and that was also like a back to Vancouver, and that was also something where I had to sort of reconnect to my soul, and I was at sort of like a crossroads in my life, and I was like, what do I want to do here? Like I had a very unique position to make a choice of like if what I wanted to do, and this is when I actually ended up connecting with my grandfather, and he was in Vancouver in his 90s, and he had just like the beginnings of cancer and the beginnings of dementia, and he lived on his own. And I
Hmm.
decided to come back to take care of him. I was like, he's going to be my guy. You know how we all kind of like eventually might have to take care of a parent or something like that. And I was like, okay,
Hmm.
he's going to be my guy. He's going to be the one I take care of. And I made that decision while in Europe. And I think that with him, there was that connection, even though like, he we didn't even talk on the phone. He didn't have internet or anything. He was in his 90s. We would even wrote like hand letters that we would write to each other. And
Well,
so I think that with him, there was that sort of, or I just had this strong pull and urge that to connect with him and come back and help him. And so I think that there was some type of divine something there where I was, where he just became the priority in my life, actually.
uh-huh. Well, often I don't know about you, but I certainly um, believe that we have lines of energy to the people that we care about. Sometimes we have lines of energy to other people that we don't want to have them to, but
Yeah.
especially when we've been nurturing a relationship or when we felt nurtured by it, those lines of energetic connection can be really strong and powerful.
Hmm.
So you were
Yeah.
listening to yourself. Yeah. And now was the rest of your family there too? You have a brother, right?
Yeah, I've got so that like yeah, so for my grandfather it was just me and my brother. Yeah, and he was in Vancouver, but he wasn't really in a position to help. But yeah, like most of my family's in Vancouver. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, he didn't have anyone to take care of him.
Yeah. And so how long did you spend with him?
Um, well, I was taking care of him for a good few years until we got to a point where we had to put him into a home. So yeah, I
Hmm.
was like 2 or 3 years, and then he passed during the pandemic.
Hmm. So do you ever feel like you can still connect with him?
Yeah, I do. I think about him. And actually, it's interesting now that we're saying this. He had a very spiritual side to him that he would talk about sometimes. Like he talked about reincarnation and how he can sort of remember some of his past lives.
Hmm.
Spoke about that and how he said that he like was in the war with Napoleon. And I remember him talking about how he could even see where he was going to be reborn again. And I remember trying to like ask him like where like describe it to me. If I'm still alive when that happens, I would love to go there and meet you as a baby. So yeah, so I think that he had a strong spiritual connection in that way.
How interesting. Yeah. I haven't met many people who have elders in their families, in their lives that are that connected or were expressive about it. So I love that he was expressive about that
Mm-hmm.
part of his recall and his connection to the energy and to reincarnation. So you had a little bit of Nepal in you already, it sounds like.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I can't let this go. For some reason, I need to ask you what his name was.
Victor. Victor Hector
Victor.
Bogarts.
Victor, say it one more time.
Victor Hector Bogarts.
Victor Hector Boogaerts. So your energy is coming through here today, and I think that's why I couldn't let this go. Um, I'm just getting so much love and joy, not just love coming through right now, but the joy coming through from his spirit to yours. And I don't know if we'll keep this on the recording or not, but I wanted you to know that. And
Oh, thank
yeah,
you.
that it's like palpable. It's like making me cry.
Mm. I know I've got this giant smile on my face right now.
Oh, I'm so glad. I had to ask his name. And so he feels like I'm just going to pause right here. We can edit this out. Is there anything that you want her to know? Well, I'm just getting like a daisy for you for some reason.
Oh.
I don't know if that means anything or not, but you're getting daisies and there's just so much joy. Okay, so that's that.
Thank you for that. It was lovely to think of those memories and think of him
Oh,
and to remember that spiritual side. And I never really connected the thought that maybe him and I were so connected,
ah,
that his spirituality is probably so strong. And I was always so interested in it. And we probably had this bond that, while I was in London and he was in Vancouver, that's kind of what drew me to him. Like, yeah, I hadn't really thought about that side of it. So thank you for that.
you're welcome. Ah, so
Hmm.
Elisa, I think I'd love to know from you, like when you're not feeling connected with your soul, what is it you do? How do you reconnect?
So I like to kind of go inward and be on my own. And I like to ask myself, like, just to pause and really ask, like, like, what do I need right now? Or how do I feel? Or what's really true for me right now? I think is probably the question. What's true for me right now?
Mm,
Help me really connect to that. And I think that in a lot of these sort of big, bold moves that I made in these huge life changes, that's ultimately what I ended up doing, just kind of like separating myself and having no other opinions or anything, and just like, what is actually true for me right now? What do I really want?
mm,
Yeah. So I think that's how I connect to my soul.
that's beautiful. I love that.
Because I think that maybe some of us don't feel like we can, we're just sort of like, like, I don't know, I need to do whatever I'm told or I should do or what society or people expect of me or something like that, and like just we can be pulled in so many different directions of things that we feel like we should have, need to do, right thing to say or whatever. And we can really lose that connection with ourselves. And that's what stress is, and people are like, oh, I have to be so perfect after this, after that. And it's like, we can be in such this emotional state. And yes, I do a lot of also like breath work and stress management to kind of switch
Mm,
us out of that stress state and into a relaxed state where we can actually think calmly and access our wisdom, right? And what we do want and access our soul.
that's right. Creating a space, coming out of stress and into inner peace, but not
Mm-hmm.
just being stagnant, to really like go further than just that peaceful moment.
Yeah.
Listen more deeply. What's next for me? What's true for me now? Where do I want to go? Who do I want to be? And honestly, maybe, I have a friend who's in this question a lot and she doesn't have a lot of goals. But very few people I've found are actually like that. Like most people really do want to lean into something. They want to be learning and challenged. And whether it's just a small little challenge or a big soul challenge that's going to require a big, bold move, most of us love receiving and learning and that excitement of what's next. Yeah.
And I think that's just so awesome because some of us, maybe we want it, but then we don't necessarily action on it. And I think
Hmm.
that's what I really like to help people with. It's like, you can do it. Like, and I can support you in that. And like, come on, like I can usher you along towards your dream if that's really what you want.
I love that. Well, it sounds like you're doing an amazing service for women and people, maybe men too. Um, we know that, the teacher shows up whenever the student is ready, so it doesn't really matter anymore.
Mm.
Uh, somebody who's wanting something is calling inside them and they're wanting more. And you're there to usher them and to guide them gently. And I think before we get to your last piece of guidance around identity or something like that, I would like to know, like, how does listening to your soul today help you in your life?
I think it helps me really connect to like my why and my reason for doing things. As like even just recently, like in October, I my latest big bold move was to quit corporate and do full-time coaching. And I've been in this steady, secure, if you will, corporate jobs, like for 23 years. And so I was very used to that steady income and it was fun. I could get a job. And now like the world of being an entrepreneur is just so incredibly different. And so I find myself sometimes a bit lost and just like, oh, I don't know if I really know what I'm doing, or like I'm like feel like I've lost some of my structure, or sometimes it gets so into like the doing of the business that I kind of forget like the why of the coaching. And so it's like, and even when it's hard or things don't go the way you think they're going to go, to connect to that why, to connect to your soul, I think really helps me to, yeah, to stay on track and to like to not give up and just know that this is part of the process, and to know that there's a bigger, deeper reason and meaning for wanting and doing all of this.
Indeed. Thank you for sharing that. And so we are going to go ahead and wrap things up. We've got a couple more points here. I'd love to know, like, what is the one thing you really, really want people to come away with today about this identity piece or the big bold, it could be, the identity or the big bold move or anything else that is moving you that's true for you now in this moment.
I think like a lot of it really comes down to like being authentic and finding, your authentic self, and loving your authentic self, and knowing that you're perfectly imperfect, each and every part of you, and to really connect to that and give yourself permission to have what you want in your life, and to not let anything hold you back, and you can get support along the way because you don't necessarily have to do it alone, but to really, yeah, connect to your authentic self, and who does she, what dream does she want to follow? And then connect with that and don't give up on it.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm just going to repeat that. Connect with your authentic self and follow the dream that she wants.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't give up. Thank you, Elisa. How can people get in touch with you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, I have a gift I'd like to share, and through that, they'll get on my email list and receive value and tips and tricks about making big, bold moves and being your authentic self. It's called Your Bold Move, and it's 3 tips to unlocking your potential. And it's because we can really grapple with self-doubt, right? Or burnout or fear of change. And so this is like 3 sort of tips and ways to kind of reclaim that confidence and ignite your passion, and allowing yourself to have like some tools so you can make those bold steps towards some meaningful change. And so, yeah, they'll find that at inspirationbyelisa.com/gift.
I love it. And of course, we'll have that in the show notes. So really, these are tips and ways to help them get started on their journey of trusting themselves and being able even to maybe comprehend what might be a big, bold move for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, sometimes we can maybe know what we want, but then we're like, how could I possibly make that happen? I'm feeling burnt out, or I think about it and like all this fear comes up, or, I have so much self-doubt. I don't know if I can do it. Like all these, sometimes we look at our lives and just it's like, how could I possibly even change right now? And so this kind of helps with all those
I
things.
love it. Yeah. Yeah. All the little mind chatter.
Hmm. So much mind chatter.
Thank you for that gift. And thank you for the gift of your presence here today and your wisdom and your beautiful energy. I really appreciate that you took the time to share with the Say Yes to Your Soul audience.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been so lovely talking about my journey and being able to share it and hopefully inspiring people. So I really appreciate you having me on your show. Thank you.
You're very welcome. All right. So with that, one of my parting words today are going to be a reiteration of Elisa's beautiful question. What is true for me now in this moment? Many blessings, and I look forward to being with you again next week. Bye-bye for now.
All right. Thank you for joining us for this week's delicious episode. Before you jump off, I wanted to remind you to get entered in the raffle this month because I'm giving away more than $2,000 worth of prizes in both private sessions and actual cash. What are those prizes, you ask? Well, one of them is a private 75-minute soul light healing session with me. And that can be healing on various levels. It might be releasing trauma or tuning up your body or your emotions or clearing things like past lives and karma that's been, energetic debris holding you back. This session can be very helpful and sometimes have dramatic results in relationships, money, and in your health. And we're going to do that together on Zoom, so it doesn't matter where you live. The second prize is a 60-minute coaching session with me, and that's also going to be on Zoom. So if you want support or clarity for your goals, like help with getting started with a project or just creating an action plan, that is going to be an amazing session. You'll be surprised at how much you come away with. The third prize is a personalized meditation that I will design especially for you. And of course, it's going to be yours to keep. So it's going to be fully personalized in terms of the content, and I will be speaking just to you so that you will be able to resonate with it and receive the maximum benefits that you want to create. Okay, now for the fun stuff, the cash. I have several cash prizes in various amounts. I've got several $50 prizes, $75 prizes, and $100 prizes. So you can see there are many opportunities to win here, and I just want to encourage you to be sure to play because you do need to play to win. All monetary prizes will be delivered through PayPal or Wise. And if you have a different currency, it'll be automatically converted for you. So as long as you have access to an Apple device, you can play. And all the instructions are available on our website at sayyes2yoursoulpodcast.com. That's sayyes2yoursoulpodcast.com. And if you need any support in completing your raffle entry, my team is ready to help you with that. You'll find their email on our webpage as well. So that's it. All the best to you, and may you say yes to your soul.